Grant County Board of Education monthly board meeting. Ms. Linda, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Flurledge is absent. Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Ms. Rogers? Here. Ms. Schmidt? Here. Ms. Smith?
Here. We will now have a reading of the mission statement by Mr. Dean tonight.
The mission of the Grant County School Board is to join the community, parents, and staff to provide a safe, caring environment in a typically responsible manner. Our ultimate goal is to teach every child to succeed at their highest potential through strategic policy decisions.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Do I have a second? All in favor? Will I have a pledge to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, construction update, approval of grant application number 2 for energy products and performance in the amount of $426,340.94. Is that Mr. Scott?
As Mr. Ship.
You want me to give an update now? Yep. We had our progress meeting this week, and our HVAC controls, they have been working on across the district. The Sherman school, and so they are about 60 to 70% finished with the thermostats for the high school. For the rest of the schools on the controls, the Board of Education here, they're about 10% into this project here, and this week they started on Mason Corrigan Elementary and the transportation building for the HVAC controls. For the lighting has started at Grant County High School. That'll be the first place that they'll start, and as of right now, they're about 40% complete with changing all the lights out at the high school to LED lighting, and they're looking at a completion date of mid-February for the high school. The water conservation, that is complete. That has been finished. They finished that up 2 days ago. If you go into any of our restrooms, you can see that the water comes out differently. So we will be able to see some progress towards savings probably at the end of January through our water conservation. The envelope is one of the big things that a lot of people have noticed across the district is if you look at all of our doors, all of our exterior doors, you'll see these big weather stripping all the way around the doors. And so many people have already complimented how much better it is, you know, with the weather stripping. I know at our building, which being the newest building, you know, commercial doors are not real energy efficient type of doors. And although ours is the newest, just by adding these to the doors, it made a big improvement. And especially my mechanics have noticed that in the bay areas where they did all that in the bay, they've noticed the difference there. So that is complete. The punch list for that will be next week, where they will come in and we will walk around and look at all of the different envelope packages that they have done. The district will receive, let's see, 11, 20, 21, 22, 22 new transformers throughout the district. And these are energy-saving transformers. Those have shipped, and Glenwood Electric is the company that will be installing them, and they will be doing that over Christmas break. So all of our transformers across the district will be put in over the Christmas break. As you know, one of the biggest components, I guess you would say, of the project is changing out the HVAC, which will happen at Drivers Elementary next year, starting in the spring. But we did have a unit go out there, compressor go out in one of the rooms, and so we have talked to them, and they are going to go ahead and put that in for us as a part of that project. So that'll take place over the next 3 to 4 weeks to get that installed. So they were very good to work with us on that, to where we didn't have to do something temporary. That's all I got. You got any questions?
Is there a way to track like 3 things? 1, getting things installed, 2, what percentage is done, and 3, the savings that you start to see? That we could look at
A progress report?
yes.
Yes.
Because I really want to see how it pays. I believe you will.
I don't have the financial side yet. That's what they are sending me each week, is different graphs like this. You can have those. They send those on email, and I can forward that. I can forward that to Mr. Morgan, and he can forward that to you. You were asking about the financial side. Here's the thing about it. We started this project, and we haven't had kids in the building very much. So, I don't know when we're going to get an honest picture of our savings until we get kids back in the building, and then we can go back on our previous energy usages and be able to look at that at that point. So, hopefully that's January the 4th or something like that. But, we'll have to wait till the end to be able to really see the savings come to us at that point. Okay?
So, yeah, is that something that you would coordinate with them on, or how would it be?
Well, and I was gonna talk about this a little bit later, but
Oh, okay,
it's gonna be tough, because, and you'll see it in the report, when the kids are in school, your energy use is way down. So it's gonna be kind of hard. I mean, if you go into the bathroom right now, for example, and flush the commode, you hear it's a lot less water than what it used to use. If you turn on the faucet, it's a lot less water than what you used. I mean, that's just the water part of it that they've been working on now. But it's going to be tough, and I'll talk more about it in a little bit. It's going to be tough to gauge some of that stuff.
Thank you for this.
But overall, on the percent complete for the project, we're at what, about 20%?
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah.
I have a motion to approve the pay application number 2. Do you have a second? All in favor? Well, because we haven't got to award anything to the right. The wellness report, card on the Christmas physical activity report is awarded to January, correct?
But you have one possession that you can review for that time, have any questions when, Ms. Hogan is back.
Let's take recess. Do you have any comments from the public? Public for tonight? And I have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Yes.
Do you have a second? Second. Do we have any questions on the minutes or the capital outlay request? Okay. All in favor of approving it as it is done, raise your hand, please. Do you have a motion to approve the claims?
Yeah.
Do you have a second on the claims? Second. Do we have any discussion on the claims?
I had another question.
Okay. On the claims? Okay.
I got one of them answered. Is Street Art Customs, is that a local company?
Yeah, Dr. and Carver, that's
Lawyer's office. Kind of across from the,
Stuff like this.
Okay.
ammunition store.
Oh, okay,
It's across the street from them.
okay, cool. So,
Okay. All in favor down the claims? Raise your hand, please. Do you have a motion to approve the superintendent's travel?
He's spending too much money.
but I'll still make it.
I'm sorry, what's the silly question? Second. Even though I spend all kinds of money. All in favor of the superintendent travel? Okay, recommended action to continue contract with Crawford and Baxter PSCs for the 2021 year.
I make a motion.
They are proposing to keep the rate the same. Correct. Which is $135 an hour, so. If you'll approve that, we'll have another fun filled deal with Mr. Thompson.
Okay, motion. Do you have a second?
I second.
All in favor of keeping our contract with Mr. Baxter, Crawford, and Jake? Old business approval of second reading of the grading policy. Any update on
Any
that?
comments or questions you have about the policy? And the changes we're making to it?
Do you have a motion to approve the second reading of the grading policy?
Yes.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the grading policy? New business, none?
Wait. However, we haven't figured out any ways to help these kids if they want to take dual credit, get to pay for it.
We have not yet, no.
Mr. Matt, you're up.
Okay, couple things we'll take care of. Ahead of time. Next, we're going to set the calendar for your board meeting. In January, we do our SDN meeting. With COVID the way it is, it's going to be very difficult for us to do what we do it normally. So you want to modify that, how we do it, or this is not a year that we have to do it. We normally do it every year, but technically it's every other year. And it's not the year we have to do it. So I'll entertain the emotions you have. You want to try and do it, we'll do some kind of virtual or report somehow, or however you all want to do it.
Well, we changed it last year. So where we had one come in here.
Yeah, but still, the amount of people in there, we couldn't really do that under the restrictions that we have right now. So we can do, plus cleaning everything up, we can do a virtual meeting like that, or they can meet with us virtually, you meet with them virtually, or however you want to do it. So if you want to try and do it, we will. If you'd rather, if you don't have to not do it, we will do that as well, just whatever your fancy.
Well, I like getting the information.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone has an idea how we could do it. Otherwise, did mention the cost of virtual. I mean, I think it's a lot of useful information to me. I like getting that information.
I mean, we can set up virtual meetings with all of them, is the only way I see how to do that. So it'd be a series of 5 Zoom or Google Meet, whatever it may be.
Or a lovely technology person, like, bring this time to us, would that be a good?
No,
thing
it's
to
not,
do?
it's not difficult, it's not difficult to do, not really, no. So the communication might not be as feet long as it was in person.
Sure.
What you're gonna do, all of us from here and then wherever.
Or for instance, they could be at their house, like they do virtual site meetings now, so they can do things. We just like, have a virtual meeting with them, you go over to your house and play.
What date that's set for the 21st, correct?
We set it for the 3rd in January, we haven't set that yet.
Yes, we have.
We have set it for 21st.
21st, 22nd.
We adopt our calendar, we always adopt it.
Very important.
That was the start of July.
Yes.
So do we want to still try and us meet here and have them somewhere else talking to us, or?
Myself, I'd rather just skip. I think it, for what it is, we'll get good information all the time from our staff, we'll get that. So with this going on, I just think there's so much
I
to
don't
do.
know that we like it. I mean, not that I'm criticizing anybody, but getting it straight from the school, I just think it's, I don't know.
I think that we need to let them know we're still here, because we haven't seen anybody either, and it's like, to be supportive.
And I kind of have a lot of questions of what they're personally dealing with straight from their mouth of how things are going and what they are dealing with personally for them.
So could we set it up like Zoom meetings and do like 30-minute increments then that day or whatever, like we've been doing?
Yeah.
So if we started at 5, we'd be done at around 8 or something.
Yeah, sooner things work out with technology.
Well, I mean, just, or if I get 30 minutes, because we were doing it here, correct? Isn't that right then?
That's right.
So you just want to meet like we planned and have them Zoom in or Google Meet with us or whatever they decide?
I like the idea if, I just don't want it to cause too much of a burden on them, however, it's kind of important to me. So,
All right, we need to look at that.
Yeah, so you're going to say this, okay. So then what's our other meeting for January then? What date was the other?
The week before, 14th,
Okay,
it is
14.
the regular board meeting, budget.
One more section is the
First
first.
session is the sign base.
yeah, the 21st, that would be the, around all in.
Okay. And then next month we do our calendar for the rest of the year.
Again, if you have any suggestions on if you want to have a retreat, if you don't want to have a retreat, then I can go ahead and put that on there in February, or
Yeah, yeah, kind of thing.
think about it, just let me know before next month.
All right, the next thing I have is, you have a handout that talks about second semester options. In the governor's press conference today, as you all know, we had amended fee out till January the 4th. And they're talking about what happened second semester. In the governor's press conference today, we talked about having, all the restrictions or we'll have guidelines for counties that are in the red to have some form of in-person instruction starting January 4th. As of right now, we are a red county, and I think by January 4th, we will still be a red county. As of right now, there's only one county who's not red in the entire state, to be limited. I think there's not other day, but of 120 counties, 119 are red. So we will have definitive word from the governor about what he's going to do Monday, maybe Tuesday. But looking at the tea leaves and what he's been saying, we kind of think it's come down to these basic options that we picked out. I have 6 basic options. There is an option of 7 to stay vertical, but that's not going to be a realistic one for us. We can look at coming back. One of our options could be coming back 5 days a week after work with your left. With the realization that at some point, when the second semester starts January 19th, we have to be dealing with a staggered start for the combined transportation needs. Another option we would have is offer charge virtually on January 4th for a week, and then come back with in-person instruction. And then again, staggered start would begin with the second semester, because at the second semester, we'll have a lot of kids coming in from virtual back to in person. And that will necessitate us having a staggered start to accommodate a lack of drivers that we have.
So what does the staggered start going to look like?
Well, another option we have is beginning on a hybrid model, which would be an AD schedule on January the 4th, which would mean certain groups would come in on one day, another group would come in the next day, and we alternate the amount of people that we have. We have an option of starting virtually for a week, and then coming in with the hybrid model on January the 11th. Again, we get started virtually for 2 weeks, which is what some districts are doing, to kind of let the Christmas rush get through. They just come back 5 days a week with a staggered start beginning on January 19th. Or we have virtual instruction for 2 weeks and then come back with a hybrid model on the 19th. There are a couple of caveats I've listed there. And all of these options, we will still have a virtual academy, so people who want to stay virtual will remain virtual. The one change will be, we're going to have a district-wide elementary virtual academy, so we'll be some switching of teachers. So we'll have one virtual first grade teacher, one virtual second grade, all the way through for the elementary grade.
That's based on, we have more kids coming out.
And we're fixing back, and we can cover those people with just one teacher per grade level, with some help at grades 4 and 5. If you hire additional aides to kind of help the numbers. And talking about the hybrid model, if we went that direction or had to go that direction, basically we would divide the county in half with US 25 being our dividing line. So group A would be the people on the west side of US 25, the group B being the people on the east side of US 25. And there will be some adjustments there made because of high population centers like in Sherman and Crittenden. There'll be some on the east side, so I have to group A, make everything balance out. The idea there is to reduce the load in the building to the manageable level that we may get from the government. You know, if you think about some restaurants, that's up to 50% capacity, you may manage that on us, you know, we're in, you have no more than a certain percentage. And a hybrid model will allow us to do that. And at some point, based on the hybrid model, we could come back, if we met the criteria the government's going to put out, to come back to in-person instruction. Our natural coming back point would be the end of the 9 weeks, would be in March, if that's not soon. That would be a natural place for us to look at coming back. If we met elementary.
Yeah, we have to do the staggered start.
At any point, come back with 5-person instruction, we have to do a staggered start, unless we have an influx of drivers that gets there running. What a staggered start means is we'll have some schools that will start earlier than right now. We'll run those routes, bring everybody to school, and then the bus will go out and get to other schools and bring them in for a late start. So you might have some schools starting at 7:30, and other schools starting around 9 o'clock. They may have middle school and high school, along with elementary school starting early, and a couple elementary schools starting late. So to balance out the now load that we have to cover countywide for the number of people running buses. Now, for the long run, hybrid model, we not do that. We can say with the number of drivers we have, we can cover the rest of that covered in that problem. Like to have more than what we need, we should have drivers and monitors on every bus pretty much.
That's like giving each student 2 days in.
Well, what I thought would be 1 week maybe in school 2 days, virtual 3. The next week you'd be in school 3 days, virtual 2. Again, that would help us to keep the load at the 50% of the load. Like right now, we have target instruction. Our mandates are 50% of the building capacity and no more than 15 kids per classroom, including teachers. So in a classroom, I don't, say for a high school, I have no more than 200 people in there. But in any given classroom,
I can't have more than 15 people in there, including teachers. That's the max I have right now, and it's what we're not. So we're looking for some kind of mandate to say that as well, for kind of a rate.
When's he coming up with that?
He says Monday, he said today, he's gonna come out with it Monday, maybe Tuesday. Commissioner Glass has put out, I thought he'd meet with him today, he's meeting with the governor's office tomorrow. To talk about all the recommendations that he's gotten from superintendents, principal groups, student groups, and parents. The final decision is Governor Beshear, but he's gonna take the input that Commissioner Glass has and give it to him as an issue decision.
So what about the work that the people that do them, before and being able to regulate?
The Supreme Court said that he is able to do that in executive order as a force of law.
Right, there was a Supreme Court case, that was filed, several months ago, and it worked with the Supreme Court. And they said that, you know, his executive order is valid, and as Matt said, it is enforceable, with arrest powers, frankly. So it was able to be enforceable. There have since then been, additional lawsuits that have been filed, but as it stands now, the Supreme Court of Kentucky said they're valid and enforceable. So I don't think you have any choice but to follow the executive order.
So based on what I'm hearing so far, based on what I've seen, our options are probably gonna be some form of hybrid model when we come back, and probably a delay in that starting, probably on January 4th, it'll probably start the week after, or 2 weeks after, depending on what the governor's mandate. So we're going to be preparing for a hybrid model, and then after Monday's announcement from the governor, we get a building say when we're going to start with our in-person instruction this month. I wish I had better stuff now to tell you guys, but again, we're waiting on what the governor has to say. I don't want to say we're going to do this, and then come up Monday, say, no, we got to backtrack and say, we got to do this because what we said.
So do you have a preference of what you like, hybrid versus staggered start?
Well, it's best for kids to be in school no matter what, but based on what we have, a hybrid model is better than saying virtual. So if we have the opportunity to do a hybrid, we'll do a hybrid.
You still do the staggered start.
Well, staggered start, we won't do that until we have to come back 5 days a week in person. The earliest we have to do staggered start would be the 19th, because that's when the semester changes. That's when we're going to have an influx of kids who are on the virtual academy want to come back to the in person. That's when the semester changes, is the 19th.
You got any room in class or go virtual?
I'm sorry.
Do you want it the other way, any of?
There's been a few that have wanted to go virtual and they made that accommodation, so. Again, we're waiting on the governor's mandates. He's had a couple of things so far. He said that every class must have an online option. We must have a protection in place for faculty and students, so we want to see what he means by all that and what the specifics are. So everything we've heard right now is real general, so the devil's in the details.
So I guess I misunderstood earlier. So what you're saying, the hybrid is really the staggered and hybrid is really based on what the governor's decision is, on how many we can have in the building. So I misunderstood.
If we come back, he comes back and says, Monday, y'all can bring everybody in, then we're gonna bring everybody in 5 days a week. But our staggered start will start on the 19th.
Gotcha.
Our guess right now, based on what we're hearing, is he's gonna say, you can have this many kids in your building, and the best way for us to do that is to do a hybrid option.
Gotcha. Okay.
As long as we're on a hybrid option, school starts will be the same. We'll still start at 8:10 across all 6 schools.
Right.
Whenever we move to 5 days a week, it'll have to be a staggered start unless we have people beating down Mr. Chip's door saying they want to go to bus. And we will take that. Anybody out there wants to, we're more than happy to, you guys want to drive for us, volunteer, but we want to take it.
If we go to the hybrid model,
Uh-huh.
and that's gonna be difficult for some families to do this, are they gonna be allowed to switch to virtual, or are they stuck no matter?
We're going to look at what the details say on the governor's order. He's also made that has been on the option for every class, and then we'll see what he says about it. But there are restrictions that we have, we can't have 100 kids coming on to a virtual math class at high school, because right now we have a virtual math teacher for our class, and there's a, you don't want to overload that.
That's what I was worried about,
Yeah.
though, like, if the hybrid, like, really makes a big problem for some parents, how are we gonna handle that?
Right, we'll have to work through that. Hopefully, the hybrid is better than what they're in right now, so at least they'll be in school at least half a week, 2 to 3 days a week. That's better than being home 5 days a week.
And will we try to do it like the same group comes Monday and Tuesday?
Now, we'll try and do A, B, like we do an A day, they go A, B, so you never have a school more than one day. So like if you were in school on Friday, that you'd be out of school on a Monday, just go, we'll have a calendar that says whatever day you're supposed to go.
I was just thinking for cleaning purposes, if you had a group go the 2 days in a row, you wouldn't necessarily have to totally clean everything between
Right,
the school day. If you go A, B, you're gonna have to try to clean everything.
well, we do that right now, we clean everything, every day, we disinfect that category, so.
Well,
That's where we
just
are.
wait to hear
We'll wait
the,
for what they can say with specifics, but based on what we're seeing, we're gonna see some form of hybrid model, but probably a delay of in-person instruction, at least for a week, if not 2. If you read Boone County, what they put out, they're going to instruction for 2 weeks, and then they're going to a hybrid model through till, the end of March. My data is, that'll be similar for us. So we're higher than Boone County as far as what our status is, they're in the 60 room. So, if the metric for us getting back is not being out in the red, we're gonna get red for quite a while. Any comments for, back there, did I miss anything? Heather, Jennifer, Claudia?
And I would just add that, I mean, Matt's not alone in this, I mean, every district that I'm aware of is looking at these same options, nobody has any more guidance than Matt does, they do over here in Grant County, everybody's just kind of waiting. And throughout the past 9 months, guidance has not been great, so everybody's in the same boat, still just waiting, I don't think anybody's plans that I've dealt with today are definite. They're all still here in this kind of period of flux until next week, hopefully. We'll have a little bit more guidance, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more definite plans.
So along that line, since it's important to have kids in school, where do the teachers fall in the lineup of giving the vaccine?
Well, what we hear is that we are gonna be, I guess, group 1B. That we won't be with the first line health responders team, and people will be in the next group, is what they're saying. One of the things I'll be doing starting tomorrow is getting information from all of the employees of who is willing to take the vaccine. So the governor says that he's going to push for educators to be one of the first ones, not the first one, but one of the first groups to have it. So then he asked us to get the people that would be willing to take that. So, but we're still, I said that actually would not with us before February at the earliest. I think that's being optimistic.
that's what I'm thinking.
So. The other part that I had talked about is KHSA, the Kentucky High School Athletic Association met today, talk about winter sports, basketball, dance, cheerleading, archery, and wrestling. They kept the start date for practice for winter sports as of Monday, with games beginning on January the 4th for basketball. They're going to look at the limits of participation of spectators for basketball, probably just family members only, at least for the first 2 weeks. So we are going to treat practice like we treat targeted instruction. We can bring in small groups for instruction during the day. We can bring in small groups for practice in the evening. So they will begin practice starting on Monday, basketball, wrestling, cheerleading, and dance. They set the state championships for basketball as the last week of March. They did not set the championships for the other winter sports. I guess they're waiting on to get venues cleared out and arranged for those. Since you have Rep Arena as the site for the championships, they had to they knew what the limits were for now. So they set it for the last week of March. There was a motion to move the change it back to May, and that failed, so they left it for the work. And the spring sports will begin that first of April. And go down to the middle of June.
So is there gonna be a KSBA conference this year?
Well, I would say that's pretty much up in the air. Um, My hunch is no, if it happens, probably virtual.
Not virtual.
Yeah, I don't see it being in person, the way things are right now. So,
Later, maybe later in the year, May, June.
could be.
I was talking to KSBA lawyer earlier in the week, and, I don't think the benefits plan has been set, but you're right, I think it would be later or first.
Well, they used to have the one in June, July, anyway, right, or July, kind of the fall or whatever, so.
And they just come all together, I know. And then they delayed my conference, which was supposed to be last week, it's been delayed till later on, and then they get moved to the virtual. I think it's moved to, mine was moved from December to May. So. And it's only $170, they didn't have it, so. There's a lot more board members than there are superintendents.
So I saw that there, I guess the legislature, or some of the groups are working on the new TRS
Yes,
rules.
the detention reform system.
Yeah. So you think like, it would be something that'll go through, starts with 2022.
Yes, just for new hires, so that's the big thing, is part of the new hires should cause less grief than what the other ones did. But there's a long way to go from when the bill session starts and when it ends, a lot can happen inside of it. So what I've seen of it, how it was presented, it does move the risk from the state to the employee, and it makes the employee work longer, reach their pension, but does have the possibility that when you retire, you can make more in the new, you can make more retire in the new system than in the old system, based on the investments and everything. So it does have some positives, based on what I've seen in the report.
And I just added that, indicate, I mean, so much can change, they can amend that, throughout the entire process, so, you know, anybody can say at this point. That's all I would say.
Since they had put together something, I just wondered if Lori had been here, what she thought about it. She's not here, so we'll find out.
I talked with her briefly about it, she said it had some positives to as far as not impacting retired teachers or current employees. So that was the biggest outcome from the detention system before, so that's going to impact her.
Be good. Okay.
The attendance report is in your, Ms. Potter, do you have anything else to add in your attendance?
No, ma'am. Some of the days are traditional when we were in person, with the remainder of the data collected from NPI.
So some of them are like pretty low, is that because people are not logging in?
Yes. So a student will receive non-participation if they do not join the class virtually. If they do not, the teacher shows that they did not participate in that class, at the end of the day, Infinite Campus will move that to non-participation, and it uploads, and so parents can see that the next day. So they now get notification to show that the previous day, if there was a class that they did not attend.
So how are we going to catch all these people up on all these classes that they just attend?
They have a question right there.
Yes, starting to get worrisome when you're getting in the 80s here.
I think that's why it's crucial, the earlier we can go back to in-person instruction, the better the better it is for our students.
Now, if we go to a hybrid model, is it gonna be hard to switch back and forth between on the attendance side of where they're at?
Yes, we'll have to adapt our learning groups. Right now, in our blended learning groups, you're either always virtual or always on site. And so I'm assuming we would have to make modifications to Infinite Campus or find a way to work around it. So there is a way to work around that.
I'm just thinking like if you're going back and forth, you know, like you're off this day, you're on this day, how would we score them as virtual versus in person and keep up with all that? That sounds like a logistic nightmare. But I guess it is with this.
Yes. We'll have to adapt over time.
I was curious about all the substitute teachers. How come you hired so many? Because you really need them, or there's
Yes.
a gap or
There's a
something?
gap, we've lost some, we need some. The one thing about this is when we're in person, we are short subs all the time. Had to cover with people coming in. It's just been a nightmare.
When we quarantine a teacher that's in person, they can go home if they're not sick. They can teach virtually from home to students that are in person. We would still need an adult in that classroom managing the physical class while the teacher is home teaching that class. So that need is still there, if not greater.
Really didn't thought about that problem.
Yeah. And that's why you're talking about a need for more CARES money coming out, none of that stuff like that, the cost goes through the roof for this kind of thing. The PPE and the sanitation and the extra personnel costs that we have, covers everything going on.
Okay, Mr. Brian, relative finance.
Okay, on your financial report, where you see at the end of October, we ended about $8.7 million. You probably remember me mentioning that. In the November board meeting, that $6 million of that was the bond sale that we took in for the energy project. So that's why that looks high. And if the estimated ending of November will be $13.7 million ending balance. And that's because we took in $5.6 million tax collections for last month. We now have the tax collections for the month of November, picking up that check tomorrow. If you want to kind of compare collections for November and December of this year against November and December of last year, this year we collected 5.7 million. Last year at the same point we collected 5.3 million. So there was some concern that we may see a decrease in revenue collected based on some of the economic issues that our county and the country are facing. But at least for the first 2 months, we have surpassed what we had collected last year. Now, if you kind of remember, you'll see a spike next month. You kind of get the big first wave with everybody paying early by October 31st. That's what we get in November. And then you see a little bit of a dip, obviously 5.6 million down to 117,000. That's what the check that we'll pick up for this, for last month is. And then you got people who are going to pay on December 30th, 31st, or whatever. And then you'll see a little bit of a spike in January with the December collections of people who waited until the end of December.
Do you have a figure for if everybody paid their taxes? What it be? I mean, you know, you can say we collected, how many people don't pay?
They give us that, don't they?
Yes, we have a collection. We know what the property value is, and we can do what 100% collection would be.
Yeah.
So we collect between 95, 97% of what's out there.
And if you remember, sometimes I'll report on this every single month, so even in March, in April, you're still getting some tax collections in, it should have been in by the end of December, they continue to roll in. Usually up to about, I guess, June or July, really at that point, it kind of fades off to where you get July and August.
And people are getting caught up on their motor vehicle taxes, we can from March 1 because from March through September, they did not have to pay up. At one point, the county was behind about 10,000 vehicles. So that ended up in October, people started coming in to pay that, so those have been larger as well. So
They
people are-
extended that to be paid, didn't they?
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, may I back up and ask a question on the DPP report? Claudette, am I reading this right, that, this 18 to 19 school year, we had like a lot, lower attendance for several schools than we do this year? I was looking at the 80s, but am I reading that right? Like back to 18, 19, the second, you've got a second set of yellow columns there? With 86, what, you know why that would be? What
I don't
happened?
know what that would have been. I don't know if we got illness run through.
My guess would be the flu.
So I'm just thinking, I know the numbers are low, but they're not unprecedented.
No,
Hopefully we can still give them the classes they need.
Yeah, one year we had a bad flu thing. That might have been that year. It's like it hit one building each month. Different building.
They did, they
Yeah.
traveled.
Yeah, like it was like this building got decimated and the next time it was a different building got it.
I would never let those local do it because it's one at a time. Okay, so,
Okay, Brian, you have a report on the energy stuff here?
Yeah, if you could, so I got the energy report up through, June 30th, and then I have it caught up through October. You remember, there's one utility that gets those bills a couple months behind, so we're caught up as far as we can be. Let's start with the annual report. You can just kind of pull the 2 pages, you have the graph and then the explanation next to it. This goes back to kind of what you mentioned a while ago, Charlotte, and maybe some of the challenges that we may face. If you look at the graph, you'll see where the break in the trend starts, right? The month of March. And then you can see it kind of, not that it trends down, but the slope obviously goes down. March, April, May, June. Now, what did that mean? What does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, we used 8% less energy in last fiscal year than we did the previous fiscal year. And that was $61,000 cheaper than it was the previous fiscal year. So our energy costs last year were down $61,000, which was 11%. Now, sometimes if you want to look at this gets in the weeds a little bit, but the usage and the cost, you may see a higher savings in cost simply because the cost of energy, you may not be using as much less energy, but the cost of energy has gone down because of the supply laws of supply and demand. So, and if you kind of look, especially obviously working in home electric, I kind of notice a little bit better. If you look at you have home electric, you can look, you're seeing negative charges on your fuel charges. So that means they overestimated the cost of power, and so you're getting a credit back. So that's why you may see 11% savings in cost, but with only an 8% savings in usage. It's just, so you throw some of those factors in, and you can kind of see where it becomes a little bit harder to look at energy saving project. Now, can we do it? Yeah, because I think we basically may want to throw out last year, and hopefully this year that be it. If we're back to normal, by the end of 2021, and then you can kind of go back and look at the years previous to 2019 and compare those to the years from 22 on. And I think you can start seeing, you'll start seeing the savings, at least that's the hope. I think you will. If you look at the next two, which is the usage from July through October, you kind of see the same thing, where you see a break in the slope of the trend of cost. Well, you see it in November. That's when we shut down schools. We were running lower already. I think we had a late start to school. We don't have a full group of students in. So right now we're on the pace for $35,000 less than what we were this time last year for the first 4 months. So we're on our way to another big savings month, a year, depending on how the rest of the year goes. You can see usage is really only down 3% now. But that's where I think you're starting to see a lot of the negative fuel charges kick in and drive down the cost. Questions?
It's complicated.
A little bit.
So on like the water savings, though, we should be able to see that relatively quickly, right? I mean,
Well-
once we get back in the building, we should.
Once
be
we
able
come
to
back in the
see.
building, get those figures up quickly, but. So we have to get everybody back to see us true savings dollars in comparison.
And I think we mentioned before, that's something to really seeing the cost of water or sewer climb, escalate quicker than energy costs. So I think we will see, and so we can start doing that. I mean, I don't have any past history, but we can start pulling in some annual bills, plus reports, pull some annual bills and start comparing some of the water bills we get.
But the whole performance thing is to prove to us that we're gonna save money.
We'll see how they factor in, the ability to get into their metrics and see what the cost is. There has to be a method way to do that, we'll see what they come up with.
And we met with them, and I think you'll agree with this. I think we vetted it pretty well, because you get a lot of these performance groups to come in, and you probably heard me talk about this before. Their savings is based on maintenance, employer cost decrease. So you have to fire employees to save money. Their electricity cost savings is based on a 3% increase. And so they look 20 years down the road and, utility costs are 30 cents a kilowatt hour as opposed to 10 cents a kilowatt hour, which is basically where we're at, have been for years. So, I think a lot of these companies kind of put in a lot of that stuff, like, oh, 3% doesn't sound big deal, 3% every year. But this company, we went through this with them, they don't do that. They don't, they're not inflating costs, their estimates down the road. It's more of a year-to-year look at it. So we don't have to fire anybody to save money. So I think we've got it been pretty good at that.
Well, if the savings aren't there, they have to come up with the money, so
Right.
obviously,
They don't want to write the check.
yeah, I was gonna say, they're not gonna wanna write us a check, maybe one time, and that's probably gonna be the last time they wanna write us a check. I mean,
But we gotta know.
right, we gotta know that happened.
Yeah, we gotta know.
And from memory, Charlotte, Jim and I dealt with them a little bit and part of the vetting process. And from memory, I think yearly they are supposed to give a report to either Matt or to Scott, detailing their savings. So there will be
We're gonna bring them
some report.
in. Because I don't want to get rid of them, dumb big girls, so to speak.
But they will report at some point.
We're gonna look at it, Charlotte, don't worry.
But Brian, I just want to try to bring this right. You got two graphs here, like the first one's got 1819 and 1920. So if I'm reading the graph right, you got over on the right hand column, you got 50,000 MMBTU. Now I run over to the left hand column, its estimated cost is 800,000. Then I flip over 2 pages, it's kind of the same graph, but it's got 50 MMBTU, 700,000. That's the next year. I mean, is that the price difference? I mean, did the price go down that much?
Okay, what are we looking at?
So like on that first page, very top line, I've got 50,000 MMBTU on the far left, and then on the far right, I've got 800,000.
And that's cumulative, right?
Right.
Okay.
But I'm not talking about the graph, just the very top line. I'm not talking about your line, just the very top of the graph, 850,000, I run across on that line, and I've got 800,000 over there. And if I flip over 2 pages, the 50,000 in the top right, top left, and then on the top right, I've got 700,000. Is that like a decrease in the cost of the electric?
That's because of the graph, because this is 1819, 1920, the first one, and it goes up above 700,000. The yellow line is 1920, and then go up there over 700,000, so we can lower that down as far as the maximum of BTU on the right hand side.
Yeah, I see it doesn't go up that high, but it does over here for the 50,000 MMBTU. So I was trying to figure out why it goes up to 50,000 over here and not 700,000. So I was wondering, is that the cost, the decrease
Right,
electric.
because this is the yellow line up here above this.
Right,
So this becomes the yellow line on that next graph. So that's why he brought that down.
I'm with you. But over here, the consumables still go to 50,000.
Right. But we still had that elevator cost. So that's good.
Right. So I think that's just due to the energy cost going down from year to year. Okay.
I think we go back for the last 10 years or so, we decreased every year but one.
Okay,
So every year we do decrease both in energy use and cost.
okay.
Before I forget, I meant to include this on the financial report. The auditors will be here next week, or next week. They can be here next week, I won't. No. They'll be here next month for the board meeting. The audit's finished. It's been uploaded to KDE, both theirs and ours. And from how I read the report, there's no real findings. I need to speak with a couple of bookkeepers. I think the biggest thing was one of them not depositing cash on the same day. They wanted that to be deposited the same day they received it. So that's not the only thing that you can see that was an issue. Other than that, everything's fine.
And that will be a virtual meeting as well, it'll be virtual.
Yes, they're not gonna be here, they'll be here first.
Another point.
It is what it is at this time. You have anything else?
I'd like to ask about the preschool. How's it going?
I think it's going really well. Our numbers are down. We're about 65 kids enrolled, which is, we're usually a little over 100. We had some parents who were saying they're gonna wait until COVID subsides before they worry about trying to figure out virtual or bringing someone in person. But around visiting, we do have some small groups coming in, and, you know, I went in yesterday, she was in a virtual field trip, they were flying to Italy, so, they were in their little chairs bouncing through the air, watching it on the screen, and, trying to do a lot of family activities where they are sitting home, meals that they can prepare and bake, and plus do virtual, and, Miss Stone, one of our school psychologists, went to Crayons to Computers and helped the teachers create, bags for each child that had all the foundational skills that they would need, like scissors and paper and build a glue and all of that kind of stuff. So every kid was equipped with their own box to have at home. And then teachers have had activities that are standard or skills that they need to those. So I'm really impressed with our teachers. We're in the middle of doing data meetings, Ms. Atkins and I, and just looking at each child, and even in these times, we still have kids growing, and that's what, what's important, so having fun. As much as we can.
Results from that. David?
Yeah.
We do.
We have one.
Yes, we do.
We have not seen them, correct?
No, we can give those to you. We have already had MAP meetings with every principal, kind of using that as baseline data because we weren't able to give the MAP in the spring. So kind of starting over.
Family presentation.
Anybody else got anything? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We'll see everybody on the 14th.
Get everything else in.
Yes.